Willkommen, bienvenue, and welcome to Let's Learn the Electric Bass with Lyte. I know it's been a while, but one of the key parts of learning is to forget. It's to take time away from the things that you've been working on, such that when you come back to them, they're a bit fresher in your mind. Did cover that before. It's always good to cover things again, because, well, it's the whole point of what I just said. You loop back around after you've had time to forget it, and it feels quite a bit better. Now you'll notice I fingered a major scale there, but a major scale didn't come out. Comes out there, but it doesn't come out here. And that's one of the things we're going to be covering this episode, is why this bottom string is acting a bit weird. And that's because I'm in a slightly different tuning for our adventures in Pachelbel Canon. We're actually in drop D. That's right, drop D, where we take our E and we drop it down to a D. Just like this third string is a D, this is now a D. Nice. So if we get this harmonic here, it's the same note as the third string open. And so why do we do this? Well, to have a nice bottom D, and there are certain passages that will feel a lot better with that drop D, such that these two strings are in unison. And this is a fifth, so we've got a nice power chord going on. Unfortunately, this is a fourth above, so if we try to play all four, it's a suspension instead of a major chord. So trying to get the major is a little bit tricky on the fretless. A little bit tricky. But Pachelbel's Canon is in D, and so you want that nice bottom root to be a D instead of an E, and you just can't quite get down to that nice earthy bottom. So most of you likely aren't learning the electric bass to become classical musicians. And even if you were training to become a classical musician, the odds of you playing Pachelbel's Canon outside of just random academic or church functions is fairly rare. But it shows up all over the place. And so learning the original will help you with all of those others. And if you haven't seen the Pachelbel rant, I'm hopefully going to put a link to it down in the description, because it's amazing. And they just take this progression and show you all, well, not all. You can't show all of the ways it's been used, but dozens of ways it's been used. Dozens. And none of them are classical music. They're all pop rock sorts of things that you've likely heard before. You just didn't know they were all built on the same foundation as this really, really old. Really, it's a practice exercise. I mean, sure, people did write canons for the sake of making music, but they're also practice for composers working with counterpoint to know what things are going to do and how they're going to sound together. And it's a puzzle, because the way canons work is that each of the parts, aside from this ground bass, so this ground bass, it just sits on there on the bottom. You do this over and over and over again 28 times, and then the piece is over. Everybody else gets one piece of music, the same piece of music. They just realize it differently. And so what they do is they take the And the first part plays that first. So I do my part. And then they go while I'm doing it. And then they do something else. But the second part then comes in with sound familiar? And then the third part comes in with that too. And the second part plays what the first part just played, and the first part moves on to something new. So that's a canon. You've likely heard it as a round, because there are tons of children's songs that are done as a round, like row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. And so you go row, row, and then somebody else goes row, row, and then somebody else goes row, row, and you do the entire song completely overlapping like that. Now, those are very simple examples, not a lot of counterpoint, but this canon in D gives you enough time to do fancy things with the counterpoint, and he does. But what we're learning today is the ground bass. And it is fairly simple. Compared to some of the things we've learned, this is going to be a piece of cake. Particularly since I'm playing it too fast. You have to remember that later on, when the tune goes dum da da dum da 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 dum ba da dum ba da dum ba da dum, you're sitting in the background going, this slow. Whew. So you need patience to be a bass player. Eventually you'll get up into the, but even that part's really slow. Eventually it gets into the really fun stuff later. We'll probably get to that too, because I think it would be fun to learn the entire thing on the bass. Most likely you just do the opening, like the ground bass in drop D. The rest of it you can probably get away with in normal standard tuning, such that you can move up and down the fingerboard, such that you can finger each part appropriately for that part and not have to worry about weirdness that happens with this new interval at the bottom. So let's learn that progression. You've seen it several times, but I didn't actually tell you what it was because I wanted it in your ear. Then we can move on from there. So we start off on D, the root. Fancy that. Then we go down to the dominant. Beautiful. So 1, 5. And then it steps up. So it goes D, A, B. So 2 frets up. And then it goes down to an F sharp, which is the dominant of that B. So now you're accustomed to doing the dominant just string to string, like we do here. But that doesn't happen with the B to the F sharp because the D has been dropped. It went from the E down to a D, so everything is shifted up 2 frets shifted down 2 frets. Whatever way you need to think about it, you would normally expect to go like this, but that's not what it is anymore. It needs to be up 2 frets. So then we go from this F sharp to a G, which is the subdominant of our key. And then we go down to D, which would normally be the tonic, but it's the dominant of our subdominant. I know I say dominant a lot. You might not follow that, but it's a dominant motion from here to here. Sort of like it is from here to here, and it is from here to here. So far, from the D to an A to a B, to an F sharp, to a G, to a D, then back up to the G, don't go anywhere, and then step up to the A, which is the dominant, back to D, which is the tonic. And so this first bit just elaborates the tonic. But then pushes you towards the subdominant right here. So essentially we're just going from here to here. Wait a minute. To here. So here to here. Now this dominant is just elaborating that. So we're still here. So all in all, we do this motion. Which is common in all sorts of tunes, not even just the Pachelbel clones. Tunes all over the place love this subdominant, dominant, tonic. Now you just extend this tonic for a while, move on to the sub for a bit, and then dominant tonic. So whenever I get a series of chords like this, I like pulling it apart, seeing what it's really doing underneath, so that I know which parts are important. Because not each one of these is as important as the others. Because then you could be like, well, which ones can I leave out? And that's kind of important when adapting it for what you really need to get done. But if you don't have time to go and listen to the Pachelbel rant, and you don't really believe that rock tunes actually use this sort of thing, do. There we are. Do. I think that's about right. Do you have the time to listen to me whine about nothing and everything all at once? I'm one of those melodramatic fools, neurotic to the bone, no doubt about it. And there you are. Basket case. It dropped out the extra subdominant. And so instead of going subdominant, tonic, subdominant, dominant, it just goes subdominant, tonic, dominant, tonic. It's all right. I mean, it's a little bit weird, and they do it differently than I'm doing it here. Haven't listened to it in a while. But in the end, yeah, it's all right there. And just go listen to that other video, and you'll see just how many tunes you can get away with just doing this much. Now, granted, the bridge is different, because it switches over to the subdominant for the sometimes I give myself the creeps. So it starts here and then goes up like that, like the tune actually goes overall. So the bridge starts here and then goes here and up, and then it comes back here and then goes here and up. And then you go back to the top, because that's how song structure works. I don't know whether or not the singing came across well in this setup. I test the audio levels well for the voice. It's okay for the bass, but I might have been overpowering it with my singing, and I might not have been pointing at the mic properly for you to get the full experience, but hopefully it got you enough with the basket case over Pachelbel's Canon. And next time, I'm thinking we might learn a little bit of the Canon and see what the counterpoint is like once you start adding this stuff to the stuff underneath with the ground bass. Now, I'm not going to be playing both at the same time, but I might be able to get a recording of myself doing the ground bass and then show how it goes with the top part. And I'll need to learn where it goes from there, because I know that first bit, I might know a little bit later, but I don't know the whole tune. And I would kind of like to. Hope you'd like to as well. Now, I always forget to leave the prompts at the beginning of the videos, but if there's any tune that you want to learn, leave a comment down below. If there's any learning type phenomenon you've experienced that you'd like to share or you'd like explained, leave it in the comments. If you don't like leaving comments, send it over to the Discord. Have a nice chat with friendly people. And if you don't like any of that, well, I'm glad you listened to the end of the episodes. Either way, I will see you in the next episode of Let's Learn the Electric Bass with Lyte.